on is January 11th, and this week on the Team of Rivals podcast, free agents are on sale. Limit 3 years per customer. The hot stove's getting warmer. Wade Davis was last week. This week we have Jay Bruce, and a lot more is expected to shake loose soon. Almost Cole and almost Kipnis. Big question mark around that one. So what's changed with the Cubs and the Cardinals and their speculation as of late? Johnny Moe takes the airwaves to instill comfort and confidence in Cardinals Nation. All this and wherever else we decide to go tonight, the Team of Rivals podcast starts now.
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. So crazy, folks. So crazy. There's a drive. Way back. It could be. Swinging a high drive into left. Back towards the creek. He's at the track. He has it. And the Cardinals world champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it, throw to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron Nuttall and Peter Geddes.
How are we doing tonight, boys?
Doing well. Yourself?
Doing great. Thought I'd pre-record our new intro so I don't have to do it myself.
You pre-recorded that? I thought you did that live.
Oh, hell no, man. I can't do that on demand. That's 25 tight seconds right there. I can never get that right.
How many times do I actually have to re-record that?
Ron, I was going to compliment you on that, but never mind.
You thought I was doing that on demand, like on cue, like boom, drilled it.
I did. You said you were going to turn off your camera and mute, and then all of a sudden here comes Ron. I was sure you were doing it live.
Here's the thing, man. I'm going to give a little bit of a secret here. It's not proprietary. I should have saved the outtakes on that because I did some of that.
You didn't save the outtakes?
No, I didn't.
Always save the outtakes.
I know.
Nuttall.
I know. 25 seconds was by really fast.
You managed to save my 9 numb imitation, but you can't save the outtakes on your first attempt at an intro.
That's the one.
That's it, man. That is a beautiful clip. For those of you who have not watched that on the video, I'll have to face our Twitter the point of time and the date of that video because that is fantastic.
You're gonna Twitter that? Are you gonna Twitter that on tweet.com?
I did something tonight. I tweeted a link to the show tonight. I think I did it right. You guys can double check that
into a GIF and then subtitle it.
I wouldn't know how to spell that. All right, guys. So we've got a list of stuff to go through. Right. I mean, this is I didn't think. Well, my fear was we'd walk into this week with nothing, and we would have to make up some kind of a stupid game or a contest or anything to make us allow us to be able to fill at least 45 minutes to an hour of recording time up talking about baseball. But we've had a couple things that have happened this week, and I think the big news, obviously, the most recent would be Jay Bruce going back to New York, who we started with last year. 3 years and $39 million. And you heard me kind of make the joke there on the intro. 3 years seems to be the magic number so far.
Yeah.
For free agents.
Yeah, there was who got a 4-year deal? Somebody got a 4-year deal.
Is it Davis? No, Davis.
No, well,
was Davis
with a 4-year. Who is it? Somebody got a 4-year, but you're right. No hitters have gotten more than 3 years. Crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there has to be a lot of reasons for that, and we can talk about it. But it's like I think because there are so many names and pieces out there, not enough of them have moved yet, and the ones who have moved, nobody's willing to go beyond that 3-year mark. It seems, and you're right. Position players, no, absolutely not. So, I don't know when this dam's going to break.
You would think that if there were more. You would think the GMs would be more comfortable going along with hitters rather than pitchers, right?
Yeah.
But
that seems to be the theme, right? Right.
And are we surprised, though, that a lot of these guys who are Boris clients are all holding out?
No, speaking of which, came late in the day today, and I know this is probably getting a little bit out of order for you, Ron, but JD Martinez has reportedly said that he's willing to go to spring training without a team. That he's he's willing to hold out that long. He's going to hold out another month in order to get what he. So he's got at least two 5-year offers in hand, but the AAV isn't enough, and so he's saying that he's going to hold out. I'm stunned by that.
Well, that's we'll see how that works itself out once teams actually start reporting. If he still doesn't have a home yet, now what he's holding out for is that there will be one organization out of the 30 that will do it. They have a need. They're desperate enough to do it that they'll just do it. And that's what he's holding out hope for.
That somebody is going to panic.
But, Elliott, you were just saying a second ago, all these Boris clients, are we surprised? We're more surprised this year because the market before the Boris clients still hasn't really moved yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just really exacerbated that whole thing. And so it could go even later into the postseason than typically what it does. The 5 big names that he has, guys, you would think that at least 1 or 2 of them would have moved by now. And
the only way that they're going to move is if they tell Boris that they want that it's not going to happen organically, right? They're going to have to tell Boris that they can't deal with this uncertainty, that they need to sign, and that they want to accept whatever offer is on the table.
Which really we talked about that last question, like who's going to cave first, right? Is it going to be an organization, or is it going to be the players? What do you guys think? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out, but
I think it's going to be the players. I think it's going to be the players because the organizations can still move forward with the players that they have. Some teams have said this, but these baseball players, like we said last week, creatures of habit. They're going to want to get to spring training and they're going to want to start their routine. These guys aren't going to want to not know where they're going February 5th and sitting there like, okay, somebody's got to give me the deal that I'm looking for, because those teams can just sit back and be like, they're going to cave. The players are going to cave.
Not only that, I think that the number of teams who are actually in the free agent market is much smaller than it is in a normal year. And I think that reflects 2 things: how awesome next year's class is. Mm-hmm. And so the incentive and we talked about this last week, the incentive for the big players, well, not just the big players, everybody, to get under the salary cap so that their penalties next year when they exceed the salary cap are minimal. It's only 20%. And also, I think that it's this change in philosophy with teams where it's no longer sufficient to just, win 85 games and be in contention to make the playoffs. There very much seems to be an attitude of, look, we're either going to make the playoffs or we're not. And so you're not going to see a team like the White Sox, or even look at it, the Phillies, who arguably the White Sox probably are 2 years away, but the Phillies are maybe a year away. The Brewers probably a year away. Teams like that in years past would have taken a flyer and would have gotten in on the market on one of these players. They're not doing it anymore. They're biding their time. They're playing more conservatively with their money. And so there aren't as many teams bidding these players up. You look at who probably has the most suitors right now, and that's Yu Darvish. He's got reportedly 6 teams in on him, but it's not the Dodgers and it's not the Yankees. The Cubs are the largest market team that's in the Darvish sweepstakes. And Theo and Jed are just not interested in bidding against themselves. So they've submitted their offer. Clearly, nobody has topped their offer. At least hasn't topped it enough to entice Darvish to sign with them. And so Darvish isn't going anywhere, probably in hopes that the Dodgers or the Yankees do get involved. But that's unlike years past, where you might have seen a team like Philadelphia or Milwaukee say, hey, you know what? We might be a year off, but if we sign Darvish or we sign when we sign Arrieta, that's going to put us in contention a year early. So let's go for it. Let's do it. I don't think you're going to see teams nearly as willing to take a chance, especially with somebody who's not an ace in most people's minds. And I don't think anybody thinks that Arrieta or Darvish is an ace. I think most people, given their age, see the two of them as probably a solid number 2.
I agree with you. I mean, there are a handful of teams, obviously, where those guys probably would have to be slotted in, at least at this point in time, and in the ace hole. But the guys, I think that if we're going to see teams wildly overspend, I think you're right. I think this is what you were alluding to. It's going to be next year.
Yeah.
They're not going to blow that money this year with the classes coming through next year. And the other thing is there are still several names out there of guys that aren't free agents, but they could be available via trade. You got Andrew McCutchen. You have Machado's name is still floating around out there. We don't know how likely it is, but between now and the July 31st trade deadline or August 1st or whatever it's going to be this year, you got to think that the talks are going to heat up again at some point around him. And then you have, the Blue Jays. How much longer are they going to be reluctant to consider getting something in return for Josh Donaldson? Because if it's not this year that they're competing, I just don't know where they're going to go in the following 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure where that organization is going to be. So you have to think that his name's going to come up again. My point is there are still names out there that you can acquire via trade. And it seems like with a free agent class next year, the big boys aren't playing right now. So it's a very strange market. I wasn't anticipating this. I'm and like you guys, I'm sitting here. We're partway through July, right? Approximately partway through July. Jesus, January. I wish we were in July. But we're partway through January, and we're still like, boy, there's still so many names that are just so many things that are unsettled. We're just not used to this.
And, I forget who it was, and I wish I had tagged it to save it, but somebody did an analysis of recent free agent classes, not just this year's and not just the projection on next year's, but did an analysis of free agent classes of the top. I think it was 15 or 20 free agents, and they totaled up their combined WAR. This year's free agent class is historically bad. It's not just bad in comparison to next year's, it's historically bad compared to, I think it's the last 4 or 5 free agent classes. So there's no surprise that managers and front offices are not interested in jumping in with both feet into this market because they just can't justify spending that kind of money.
Yeah, that's clearly the case. That's why we're sitting here with the biggest story so far being Wade Davis and Jay Bruce.
Right.
What's the other big name? I mean, there's, we were kind of at a loss here. All right, guys. So let me pivot to one other thing here. So
wait a minute. What do you mean? What's the other big name? The Cubs signed somebody just this afternoon.
Yeah, to a minor league.
How dare you? They signed
minor league.
Signed Daniel Camarena reportedly to a minor league deal. We don't know yet. We haven't seen the details, but they signed Daniel Camarena to a minor league deal. I mean,
my God, we better dig in on that one, man. Better dig in on that one and then fill all of our social media feeds with all the details on that.
All the details of Daniel Camarena?
Yes. Well, the Cardinals, they've acquired a couple, names.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that so far.
Gregerson.
I think it's interesting. I think so far this year, most of the teams, at least the teams that see themselves as in the race, have been signing a lot of depth pieces. And they're waiting out the big free agents, but they're not waiting to fortify themselves in the case that somebody goes down with an injury.
Right, they're not waiting necessarily for role players, but you haven't seen a lot of centerpieces move around. Right? I mean, none, maybe even none.
Yeah, in fact,
Wade Davis is a centerpiece. The stopper is, it's one of your big pieces of the team. But yeah, you're right. The role players, that's moved along pretty well.
In fact, if you look at it just strictly from a transactional standpoint, the Cubs have actually been, I think, the most active team so far this offseason. Now, it hasn't been a lot of sexy signings, but it's been a lot of guys to minor league deals or to 2-year deals where there's not much in the first year and a lot in the second year because they're expecting somebody to come back from injury. They're looking to build up arguably their 4A squad of guys who they're going to be able to shuttle between Iowa and Wrigley during the course of the year when inevitably somebody gets injured.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you have one signing in Chatwood that could pay off huge this year.
Right. When he's no longer in Denver.
You got Drew Smiley that could pay off later too.
Right. Next year. Mm-hmm. Well, worst case scenario, he pays off next year. Best case, he comes back this year and he's able to contribute out of the bullpen as a long man. And perhaps he gives you the ability, and not that I'm advocating for it, because he provides an invaluable role, but he provides you the flexibility at the trade deadline, maybe to send Mike Montgomery to another team to get, that one piece that you're missing on your bench or maybe out of the bullpen.
All right, guys. So one of the other things that has come up this week is kind of funny, right? We were texting each other back and forth when this happened, but evidently Steve Harvey works for Major League Baseball now because somebody reported that Garrett Cole had actually been traded to the Astros, when in fact we found out just 10 or 15 minutes after all those tweets went out that that wasn't the case. But there were big names, guys. I don't blame myself for getting excited about something that actually happened. No. When you see it come from Ken Rosenthal and John Morosi and names like that, you're like, oh, that's legitimate. You don't question it.
I thought somebody had finally put some dynamite on the Hoover Dam and the floodgates would open, but
because
some idiot blew out the candle.
Yeah, you think about it. Looking at that, Garrett Cole getting traded to the Astros changes the whole dynamic of the offseason, and you would think that the dominoes would have started to fall after that. It's unfortunate.
Well, you would have thought too that has some impact on potentially Darvish. Some impact on what Darvish could have done, right? Because the Astros are one of the teams he's met with, one of the teams that's likely to have already extended him an offer. And if they acquire Garrett Cole, does that offer rescinded? Do they take it off the table? I mean, do they leave it on? I mean, we don't know, but I would have thought from your perspective that would have slightly increased. Even the Cubs are still considered the favorites, that had to increase their odds of Darvish actually choosing Chicago. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah. Speculation is that the Astros and the Cubs are the top two teams on Darvish. And so if the Astros get taken up, I mean, think about it. They've got Verlander, McCullers, Keuchel, help me out here.
Kegel.
Yep. Kegel exercises, right? Charlie Morton. They've got somebody else who's
Peacock
blanking on, and then you add Garrett Cole to that mix. Why do they need to add another pitcher, especially when they're going to have to pay through the nose to get it?
Oh yeah, I mean,
you have to
look at the top three names that would be there, right? I mean, you've got Keuchel, Verlander, Cole. Where do you slot Darvish in? Like, what's the need to pay somebody $20+ million a year when you have those names? You're right.
Exactly. So that takes them out. And then you're looking at supposedly 5 teams, and the 5 teams that are reportedly in on Darvish are the Rangers, the Cubs, the Twins, and I'm obviously taking the Astros out of this, but the Rangers, the Cubs, the Twins. Help me out here. Who's
throw Seattle in because they're always in.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. I think it is Seattle. Possibly the Cardinals or well, that's been one of the rumored teams. People are speculating it's either the Cardinals or else it's the Dodgers or the Yankees. At that point, maybe it makes the Yankees a little bit more desperate, but they still have to move salary in order to sign Darvish. And, there's clearly no market for Jacoby Ellsbury, and he's the one player that they don't need who carries a big cap hit. As far as the Dodgers, I don't think that there's anybody that nobody's going to want Matt Kemp. So then you're left with
or Gonzalez,
the team that everybody thinks that Darvish would like to go to, and that's the Rangers, but they have set a limit on how much they're willing to spend. So you got to think that they're a long shot. The Twins have identified Darvish as their top free agent priority, but the Cubs can overwhelm the Twins' offer. So at that point, with the Astros off the table and their financial resources, the Yankees off the table because of their salary cap constraints, and the same thing for the Dodgers, you have to think at that point that then Darvish signs with the Cubs. And then all the dominoes start to fall. Once Darvish sets the market, then Arrieta signs because everybody's going to fall in line behind him, and the free agent starting pitcher market has suddenly reduced. And then once that is set, then Alex Cobb is able to come in and say, okay, well, this is what I'm worth given what Arrieta and Darvish were paid. And then all of the dominoes start to fall. And as Elliott stated, somebody puts dynamite to the Hoover Dam. But with that Cole trade being pulled, we're where we were last week.
Right. And we thought, well, we're going to get some things are going to start happening. And I agree. It takes a couple of these big names to move, and we just haven't seen it happen. But I think somebody relit the pilot light this week on the stove, because I do think it was out. And just nobody knew it. We kept trying to cook stuff up, and nothing was getting warm or hot. And I do believe it's back on. It's got to happen, guys. I mean, we're getting too close to pitchers and catchers reporting to continue to report nothing.
4 weeks. 4 weeks away, and you've got, 30 guys who need to find a team in the next 4 weeks.
Yes, I mean, yeah, and big names too, man. These aren't just.
Right.
But going back to Darvish, just real quick, there's something, Pete. And I don't. I think that. Well, let me ask you guys this: what do you think the likelihood is that he just comes to a realization that, boy, I'm not going to get what I'm out to get, and I maybe take a 1-year deal, maybe go back to the Rangers, and then try this thing again next year. Is that likely or not?
So. I think it's less likely with a pitcher who's healthy. I think it's more likely with a pitcher who's coming back off of some kind of surgery, some kind of injury recovery, to prove that they're healthy and that they're back, right? If anybody is going to take a pillow deal like that, it's going to be Alex Cobb.
Well, and I think the other name that we'll get to a little bit later, but I think there's one more position player that could do the same thing, and I think we might be looking at a potential of Mike Moustakas potentially doing the same thing.
He could. You're right.
Yeah. So I want to get to him in a second, but we had another interesting. It's a mildly interesting story, but the Mets, although they're the ones who brought Jay Bruce back to New York for 3 years, they nearly brought Jason Kipnis. In fact, they had a deal in place for Jason Kipnis, the second baseman. That's where the Mets have a lot of needs, right? But second base was another hole they had to fill, and that seemed to be nixed by upper management. And I think it goes right along with everything that we're talking about tonight. And that is, he's owed $30.5 million over the next 2 years with a $2.5 million buyout for 2020. Upper echelons of management for New York came in the last second and said no, not enough value there, and so that didn't happen. Are you guys surprised that Cleveland was going to deal him? He had an off year last year. Are you surprised at all? And do you think that other teams now, wow, they're shopping him, or they're actually willing to move him? You see anybody else jumping in? I don't think either of our teams have a need at second base.
No,
I agree. Go ahead, Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they were going to move Kipnis. I felt like he was a good fit there in Cleveland, especially during the 2016 season. He was a pretty big story. I mean, he had a great year. But after last year, they're probably looking at that price tag now and thinking, geez, is this what we're going to get next year? And is there an opportunity to maybe get something for him, or just move some money off of the books to try and bring something in, or make a move for next year? And maybe that's kind of where I feel Cleveland's thinking was coming.
But doesn't it seem like a lot, guys? I mean, Jay Bruce walks. I don't think they had any intention on bringing him back. Carlos Santana signs with the Phillies, and you're willing to trade Kipnis. That's like your whole right side?
Yeah, but I think I kind of get it from Cleveland's standpoint, because he's the glue guy. But if
glue guy, glue sniffing guy, come on, elaborate. What are you talking about?
Well, you look at his career stats, right? There's nothing about him that really stands out. He's a solid player, but if the Mets are willing to, and this is what I would guess, is the Mets made the Indians an offer where they felt that it was worth it to let him go. He's not an untouchable player for that team.
What about his prestige score?
He's a clubhouse guy.
He is. He's a clubhouse guy. He's good. Mm-hmm. I think, I hate saying this about anybody, but we follow two National League teams, and so that's clearly going to color who we see as being really good or not. But Francisco Lindor is far more important to the Indians' success than Jason Kipnis, and I think that Jason Kipnis received a lot of pub in 2016. Not necessarily for the way that he played, but for the way that he played in the postseason, and the fact that he was a Chicago guy playing against the Cubs in the World Series. And I think that he's not on their untouchable list. And so when the Mets came to them with something that they considered a good offer, they were willing to let him go.
Well, I think this kind of thing in baseball happens a lot more than what we hear about it, right? Like a name will pop up all of a sudden. He was almost traded, and you're like, what? I hadn't heard a single rumor about it, that's the odd part for us, is that normally when something like this happens, like, guys, run how many times do you refresh Twitter an hour? I mean, especially when stuff happens like this in the month of December.
Oh, when the Garrett Cole rumors were popping up every 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so to not hear a peep about this until after it was almost done and then not done. In fact, we probably heard about it, a day, 2 days, 3 days after it was already like, nah, we don't agree to do this. We're done,
and the speculation is that this actually happened at the winter meetings. So this wasn't just that that we heard about it a day or two after it was done. It's that it's first getting out, 2 months almost.
Okay. So that's a part of the story I didn't pick up on then, because that is a long time, and I'm surprised we hadn't heard anything about it. But anyway, it's not major news, but in times like this, you got to bring up little things like that.
Hey, getting back to Garrett Cole and just very quickly, it seems like it came so close with the Astros, and clearly the discussion, the channels are open with the Yankees, and so it would appear that Garrett Cole is probably not going to open the season with the Pirates. I think that it's just going to be a matter of time before one of those two teams finally breaks through and offers the right package to the Pirates, and he gets shipped out. And I just got to see. I am not going to be sad to see him go, because he has killed the Cubs. I'm looking at his stats on ESPN right now, and this is against, I guess, what you would say are the top 14. Well, no, it's probably the 14 people who have faced him. And so I can only imagine what it is against the guys who are no longer on the roster. But against the 14 guys who have faced Garrett Cole on the Cubs roster, they're batting a combined 211 with a 296 slugging and a 588 OPS. So please, Houston or New York, consummate this trade so that Garrett Cole leaves the NL Central. Yeah. And this is not limited to just the Cubs. Against the Cardinals and it looks like about 17 guys or so.
Yeah, I don't think the Pirates are trade in division, if that's what you're getting at.
No. What I'm saying is Cardinals benefit you guys should be looking to get rid of him too, because the numbers aren't that much better. 240 batting average and a 704 OPS. So other than Matt Carpenter, Tommy Pham, you should be rooting for him to go out of the division as well, because he has been a beast against the NL.
Well, what were we texting? When we thought this trade happened, we were kind of like exchanging figures back and forth, right? I think, okay, this is good for 2+ wins.
Probably. Yeah. For both teams.
About right.
Right. Because you probably figure you're going to face him 2 or 3 times during the course of the season, given how many times that.
So they play 18, 19 times against each other within division. So you might face somebody 3, maybe 4 times if you catch them, if you catch the rotation just right. Yep. That's what I'm banking on.
Now, that having been said, and we discussed this.
I want to see him go bye-bye.
Yeah, that's right. Please go to the AL, Garrett. Yeah. And I wish you well. And speaking of which, before we move on, and we discussed this before the show, and I'm not gonna pull it up on the YouTube live stream. I'm just gonna recommend that people just search for Amy Cole on Instagram. And then I think maybe we should put this up as a Twitter poll. Who outkicked their coverage more, John Lackey or Garrett Cole? Because, oh my God, Christina Lackey and Amy Crawford Cole are both smoking hot. I'm not going to put you two on the spot. I know you're both married, but oh my God, what did I do? I acknowledged reality. That's what I did.
All right. Well, if you want my vote, I think Lackey outkicked these. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I think Lackey's the one who outkicked his coverage. Looking at the two guys,
I agree.
The most.
I think Amy Cole is hotter than John Lackey's wife, but you're right. John Lackey totally.
Oh shit! Sorry, whoever's out there.
No, we're not. It's a bunch of guys.
No, not really.
To us.
No, nobody cares.
We haven't offended any women right now.
All right, so today, this afternoon, while I was at work, in the middle of a meeting, I'm looking at Twitter, of course, like I have been the whole off season, and I see John Mozeliak getting ready to go on the radio. It was WGNU 920 AM. I don't have an audio clip of this because I had my phone up to my ear, pretending I was listening to a voicemail when I was actually listening to this interview.
Wait a minute. Did you guys not only are you guys not only trying to emulate us on the field, but now you're emulating us with a radio station, WGNU?
That's their call sign.
Wow.
Sorry. But our scoreboard's bigger. Anyway, right?
Yeah, I know, but our scoreboard shows pictures of more recent championships.
All one of them? All right, cool. All right, so anyway, WGNU 920 a.m. They had Mazalok on, and there were, whoever's interviewing was lobbing up some softballs there. They weren't tough questions. They were very, very kind. But if you're one who's a Cardinal fan, what does the president of or the vice president of operations think? I think that the Cardinals need, and this is a lot of what we've heard year over year, guys. And so it's a little frustrating. Okay, are the Cardinals done? Good on you. You've got Marcell Ozuna. You've got a middle of the order bat that you sorely needed 2 years ago, and you've got one now. One. Now, the question was, are you done? Do you need another one? Do you need more help at one of the corners? Are you going to bring another bat? Somebody to protect him or somebody for him to protect? The response, we're comfortable with the lineup we have. Further in the interview, the bullpen was addressed. And the response to the bullpen was, we're pretty confident with the bullpen we have. So if you're a Cardinal fan listening or will be listening within the next few days after this is uploaded, is this not what we've heard before? Is this not what we heard last year? Last year it was, well, we like the team we have. Well, you did, John. You liked the team that you had. Your owner liked the team that you had, but there are probably millions of us fans who knew you were wrong. We knew you were wrong last year, and you did nothing about it. We know you're wrong right now. So what I'm hoping is you're just purposely not tipping your card. You're not showing your hand right now. I get that. I hope that's what you're doing, because if you are serious about you're comfortable, because we've heard you say that before, and then we see you miss the damn playoffs 2 years in a row. We've seen our team get our ass kicked by our division rival, your team, 2 years in a row. Last year was uglier than the year before. So don't you tell us you're comfortable if you're not. Don't bullshit us, John. We're onto your scent. We know this. We know this line. We know all this rhetoric. We've heard it, and it's just the way you say it too. It's this aloof superiority that you know more than we do. Wrong. Because I knew you were wrong last year, and I'm just a fan. But there are millions of people that think exactly like I do, that your lineup is not good. You've closed the gap slightly, but you are not favorite. They fear one guy in your lineup now. All this talk about we're going to look at everything, we're checking on everything. Now he did go on to say he's not closed the book on anything. They're going to continue to kick some tires and have some conversations. But if he truly believes that, if he's truly confident in the bullpen that blew 30-some odd leads after the 7th inning last year, and you've acquired Luke Gregerson, and you're counting on a Tommy John recovery to come back and contribute to the bullpen, you're out of your goddamn mind. If you are confident in your bullpen. I actually think he had the term switched around. I don't think he got him right. If he's confident in the lineup, I forgive him more for that. And if he's just saying he's comfortable with the bullpen, but he's confident in the bullpen that was so terrible last year. You guys know that. How many leads did we blow to you? Yeah, I'm sure you're looking forward to facing that bullpen he's so confident in.
Get past Carlos Martinez, get him out in the 6th inning, then it's like, don't have to worry about...
Right, because you're going to mount a comeback, and it's not going to be that difficult. Somebody's going to blow... Actually, you don't have to do anything. Just stand there with the bat and let him explode. Because somebody will do it. But I mean, seriously, it's just... I hope he's playing this maybe in just a way where he's just stating that, but they're working on things behind the scene. I'm hoping that. But if he is serious and he's comfortable and confident with what they have right now as they stand right now, he's wrong.
Well, and as you said, you got to think, as a fan, that he is wrong. What do you think these GMs are thinking? Are the GMs sitting there thinking, yeah, we know he's doing something. He's not really fooling anybody right now. So let's, whoever we think they're going to go after, let's make them think we're going after him too. Drive up the price.
But that's very possible because they've been tied into a lot of things, guys, in this offseason. Just about everybody that's available that's a strong bullpen guy that's either been available via trade or free agency this year. The Cardinals have been linked to damn near everybody because they have that bad of a need for the bullpen. That's why all these writers and these experts, they tie the Cardinals in on all of this speculation because they have those needs. And when they have those needs, of course, I mean, if you're a competing GM and you want to drive up the price on them, yeah, sure, why not? Of course. The Cardinals bullpen sucks. They don't have a closer. So if you can run the price up on one with no intention of bringing him in, of course you do that.
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is me taking on my devil's advocate role. Hat. I had so much practice with it last week.
Right.
I don't think that this is unique to Mozeliak. I think that this is a pose, and I think that if you were to pull probably all 30 general managers in Major League Baseball right now, they would all say the same thing. We're comfortable with the team that we have right now. If the season started today, we're comfortable with where we are at. You can't say that to a fan base. No, you're right. No. I know you.
2 years in a row. You can't say it now.
You can't say that to a fan base, but I don't think that Mozeliak and any of the other general managers are saying that to the fan base. They're saying that to the free agents. We don't feel that it's a priority to sign you. So you need to come off of your demand that we pay you, Jake Arrieta, 7 years at $200 million total. You're not worth that. And so if you want to come and you want to pitch for us and you want to get us into playoffville, you're going to have to come down off of your expectations. And you know what? Maybe we're willing to pay you $30 million a year, but we're not going to do it over 7 years. We're going to do it over 4 or 5 because we don't trust that you're going to be effective in years 6 and 7. And so do we need Jake Arrieta? No, we're comfortable with the team we have. The Cubs, I'm sure that if you were to ask Theo or Jed, they would probably say right now, yeah, they're comfortable with who they have because if the season started today, they would slot Mike Montgomery into the 5 spot and they would be fine. They wouldn't have a lot of depth and they wouldn't have that swing guy in the bullpen, but they could do it and they would be comfortable. And I think that a lot of teams feel like that. Sure, we could start the season where we stand right now. Would we be the best possible team we could be? No. But they're not right now. They're not pitching to you.
Your tone that you're using now is more transparent, though. Which his is not. If you all I did was paraphrase his response.
That's why he's a Major League Baseball general manager and I'm not.
Well,
it's also easiest for us to accept that though because we're 2 years out of a World Series and making the playoffs and going to the NLCS the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. The St. Louis Cardinals aren't. They've missed the playoff.
They've had a regression 4 years in a row, guys. You look at how they've.
The biggest thing is their needs are so much more than the Cubs are, and so they don't have as much leverage as the Cubs do. So the Cardinals got to think they're going to have to spend a little bit more money than some of these other teams are because of the position that they're in.
Yeah, when you dig a little bit of a hole, of course you have to dig yourself out of it. And if you look over what's happened over 4 years, they've regressed every year. They've gotten just a little bit worse. So Pete, I think you're 100% right. He's many would say he's smart answering questions that way, and I agree. That's why I'll go back and say, we'll have our answer in a month, right?
Yeah.
If he was just saying what he needed to say, fine. No problem with that at all. But the problem is I've heard this from him before, and if they do nothing else, I don't think their results are going to change much next year. And I don't know if anybody would disagree with me or not, but that one hitter in the middle of the lineup is not going to push you over the top. It's not going to buy you those extra 3 wins to get you into the wild card play-in game. If that's your goal now.
So what do you think is more of a priority, getting another hitter or adding somebody to the bullpen?
Right now, I would say this, right? No, I'll answer your question. They've got to address
my question.
They have to address the bullpen. If they wouldn't have acquired Ozuna yet, Pete, my answer would have been different. I'm like, they've got to have somebody in that lineup.
Hey, tell me something. Right now, looking at it, who's going to close out if the season did start today? I mean, at least the Cubs have this. If the season started today, Brandon Morrow is their closer. Mm-hmm. If the season started today, who's closing games for you?
You probably have a mixture of Tyler Lyons, Sam Tuivalala. I don't never know if I pronounce that right or not, but there's 2 guys there. Tuivalala is out of options. He's going to be with the big club this year. He's a hard thrower. He's just been one of those guys that perhaps goes through way too many pitches in an inning. Typical of these young relievers, right, who haven't pulled it together yet, where they'll rack up the pitch count, let a few guys on. It'll be between Lyons, who's a little bit more of a veteran, got a little bit more under his belt. It's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be between those 2 guys if the season started today and they didn't have a closer in place.
But that's not what you want to see in a closer, is somebody who's going to let a few guys on.
No.
Who's going to run up his pitch count and let a few guys on.
No, absolutely not. Well, I mean, I'm used to it, though.
At some point during the course of the season.
Trevor Rosenthal always give you cardiac problems in the 9th inning. So,
yeah.
He keeps your son up at night, that's for sure.
Yeah, but no, I mean, so do they have something there? Of course they do. Is it good enough? We all know it's not.
Right.
And the other GMs know it's not. So something's got to, and the free agents know it's not. So the Cardinals have that glaring need. They have to address that first. I would love for them to get another bat, though, because who's going to protect Ozuna, or who is Ozuna going to protect? Don't tell me you're going into the season with Dexter Fowler as your third hole hitter. Holy shit. What have you done to yourself?
Not only your third hole hitter, but your right fielder. Although I have to say, Buster Olney ranked him as the 10th best right fielder in Major League Baseball right now, which is better than the Cubs can say.
That's in the top third.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I'll take it. I don't like it, but I'll take it.
All right. So if the bullpen is, in your mind, your priority, who is your top target of the three who have been connected to the Cardinals? Colome, Holland, or Reed?
I would like to see them because they still have minor league outfield depth to deal from. I'd love to see them deal for Colome. If they decide they can't do that route, or Tampa Bay just won't budge on an asking price for him, then I think Addison Reed should be the answer. I mean, to be honest with you, if it's Reed, if it's Holland, I don't think it would matter at the end of the day, at least before the season starts. To me, I'd like to see him do one or the other. But if we had to pick right now, I'd say I would just probably say Addison Reed. That's the name I've heard come up the most anyway, that they would be more likely to pursue that than they would a Greg Holland.
Speaking of which, Elliott's favorite Cubs tweeter, not blogger, tweeter.
Who is that?
Charles the Cat. Charles Meow.
Charles the Cat?
Meow.
He tweeted some scoops right now?
He tweeted moments before we went online that the Cubs have had lengthy conversations. This is what he's hearing. Sorry. That the Cubs have had lengthy conversations with Addison Reed's representatives, but that Chicago wants to secure their rotation first before a possible offer is made. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So
I would love to see the Cubs steal the Cardinals' number one or number two target for bullpen depth right out from under their noses.
They have the same need, though, right? I mean,
they do.
They're both. It's weird because they both need the same. I mean, they need that part.
Although it would appear that the Cardinals need it more than the Cubs do.
Do you think the Cardinals do? I mean, if you look at how many games they cost themselves last year because they couldn't lock anything down. It was 30 plus. It was between 35 and I believe 40 games where they had blown a lead late. If you just cut that in half, it's a different. The outcome of the season is slightly different, or a lot different actually. So it is a bigger need for them, absolutely. Now for the Cubs, though, what do you think is the bigger need? Is it that bullpen part, or is it a starter for them?
I think at this point, and Elliott definitely wants you to weigh in on this. I think at this point, if the season started, you would see more of the hole in the starting rotation than you would in the bullpen, because it would mean that Mike Montgomery would have to slot into the rotation, which would weaken the bullpen. Yep. So I think that that starter, regardless of who it is, whether it's Darvish or Arrieta or Cobb, that fifth solid starter that you can count on, so that Chatwood can slide down to the 5 spot. Having that person slot in there is far more valuable than solidifying the back end. Now, I think in an ideal world, what the Cubs are looking to do, I think their remaining moves are that starter, a closer at a reasonable combined price for the two, and then I think probably some bench depth, maybe a backup catcher. And if you see that in the next couple of weeks, I think the Cubs are done.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that I have a feeling that the Cubs are going to rely on Caratini as the backup catcher this year. I know he doesn't have the experience that they're looking for, and I know that they want to bring in a backup catcher like they have the last few years, somebody who's been doing it a long time, who can catch 1 or 2 times a week, and who's that bench guy, that clubhouse guy that's been there for a long time. I mean, that's kind of been what they've done the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather see Montgomery as your swing lefty than come in and be the 5th starter. I know he wants to be the 5th starter, but he is more valuable to the Cubs as that lefty guy that can come in and eat some dirty innings up if they have to. His his ERA is just it's two different levels when you're talking about coming in and pitching 4 or coming in or 3 or 4 or coming in starting and then trying to go 5 or 6. So he's two different pitchers. I just think he's way more valuable as that left-handed swing guy.
I agree. Until the Cubs find somebody else that they can get to take
now. Right, and until Montgomery actually starts himself as a starter from spring training on,
I agree.
I don't think he's going to be that 3, 4, 5, starter.
But I don't think
so. I think he can be, but I just don't think he's there yet.
I agree, and I don't think that the Cubs are comfortable putting him into that position until they know that his role in the bullpen is filled, and they don't have that right now.
Right,
now,
and
maybe the kid that they signed today is going to step into that role. What do you think about that, Ron?
Why not? It's a role that needs to be filled. You just find him, fill it. God damn. What do we pay you guys for? So for the Cardinals, what you didn't ask me about was the bat. Who would the bat be?
Well, right.
Who would that second bat be?
You said that the bullpen was your priority. So
the bullpen would definitely be the priority.
So looking at the names that are most connected to the Cardinals, right? Mm-hmm. Eric Hosmer seems to be the one that's been talked about the most. I think Mike Moustakas is probably second, and the only reason that those two are talked about the most, because they don't play the same position, is because of the versatility of Matt Carpenter. But then also you guys, like pretty much every other team in baseball, has been tied to Manny Machado. And then there's also been talk since last year about Josh Donaldson. Of those 4, 1, who do you think is most likely? And 2, who would you like to see them at?
Well, who I would like to see in here is Josh Donaldson, without question. I know he's a little bit older than the other guys. I don't know what he's going to cost in next year's class, but he is in next year's class, which is going to be it's going to be a hefty price tag one way or the other. I think his production would be great. They need a third baseman badly. I don't know if I want let me tell you why. There's a bigger reason for this. I think Donaldson would cost you less to lock up on an extension than paying Hosmer for 7 or 8 plus years right now.
Okay, so all things being equal, looking to extend guys or looking to sign guys to an extension. Mm-hmm. Who would you rather trade for, Machado or Donaldson?
I still say Donaldson because it's going to be a less of a length. He's older. He's 31. It's
But wouldn't you like to have that part of the left side of your infield nailed down for the next 7, 8 years?
Boy, you sure would.
For a guy who's that young, Machado's gonna be what, 27 going into the 2019 season?
Yeah. Yep. So perhaps what I'm leaking in my thinking here is that he's going to be one of the top names on the market.
Yeah.
St. Louis doesn't win those things, and so if they were to trade for 1 or 2, I don't get it either.
You've talked about this, but why not? You guys are ostensibly a small market team, but your fans
second to LA in attendance.
Right. But you're right. Your
fans only to the Dodgers
turn out like a big market team, which means that your costs of operating are easily far less than they are of most other large market teams. So when you add it all in, it's cheaper to be the St. Louis Cardinals than it is to be the New York Yankees, the Mets, the Cubs, the Astros. Well, maybe not the Astros, but the Dodgers, right? Like those 4 teams, it's more expensive to run those teams than it is to run the Cardinals. And it's more lucrative for a player to sign in Missouri than it is to sign in California, Illinois, or New York. So I don't understand why it is that your team isn't able to make more of an impact on the free agent market. And I know that you can chalk it up to ownership, but ultimately it comes down to your front office. Why is it that John Mozeliak, and not just Mozeliak, but for years, the Cardinals have not been that team that makes a splash in the free agent market? Because if you're ever going to make a splash in the free agent market, it's next year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Pete, I'm with you, but if you look at historically, you're right. I mean, you've said it
Ron,
already.
Why am I getting more fired up about this than you? This is your goddamn team.
Well, because I've seen this since the 1980s, mid-1980s, when I actually started paying attention to baseball at a professional level, and that is the Cardinals never win these things in the offseason. If they go into 18 and these guys have never been within their organization, I think they have minimal to no chance at all to win them over. I mean, look, you're a Midwest St. Louis market, and what's your attraction to St. Louis for somebody who's never lived there before? They've only played there as a visitor for 3 days at a time.
I suppose it depends on where you grew up.
No doubt. But Scott Rowland signed a long-term extension there, but after he was traded, but he was from Indiana.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, do you think that let's rewind the clock a little bit, guys? Would Jim Edmonds have ever signed a free agent contract with St. Louis had he never set foot there and played there ever? He's a California kid. He grew up. He was drafted by the Angels, played professional baseball for the Angels. You think if the Angels wouldn't have traded him and he wouldn't have went to free agency that next year, would he have ever considered St. Louis?
It's hard to get into any.
I can tell you. I can tell you right now. He's already said absolutely not.
Has he?
Yes, and until he actually went there and played for the organization, he would have had no intention. Mark McGwire was the same way. The only reason he agreed to the trade is because his former manager was managing for that team, and so he agreed to the trade without any intention of staying there. 1997, he was going to walk after that year and look for another West Coast team to play with, but it wasn't until he played there. I'm telling you guys, St. Louis is just not a pull for high-priced free agents if they have other options in bigger cities, bigger markets. It just doesn't work. And so you're asking me why I don't get fired up? I've lived this shit for 30 plus years now.
Yeah, but throw more money at them, right? With a lower state income tax, with a lower cost of living. If the Cardinals offer somebody $30 million a year, that's worth more than $30 million in LA or Chicago or New York.
I don't know what you want me to say. You want me to bring a beach in?
Well,
bigger buildings in. I mean, they're not going to win.
Didn't they just try to throw more money at somebody and they got burned? Oh, you got your feelings hurt that he didn't stay.
Oh, Hayward.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not the one whining about that anymore.
I have to say, in retrospect,
there was a lot of butthurt Cardinals fans after he signed.
There were. I mean, well, you know what? That's not the first time St. Louis fans have been butthurt. I mean, Edgar Renteria left after 2004, right? He made the last out of the World Series, ran past first base, and ran all the way to the bottom. And
I thought he was going to stay too. I'm like, God, Edgar, he's going to be there, and he's going to.
No, you know what? With me, and I don't know if this is before we started the podcast, Pete, but when that happened, once the Cubs were heavily involved in that, I thought, shit. The Cubs just knocked them out, and we've talked about it in last year's podcast. You go back and listen to the early episodes.
Do we really have to?
The Cubs? No, but I don't care. We can. I'd say this, and I've said it on their show before. Who was looking like they were having more fun in the dugout? The 100-win team at the end of the season?
Oh yeah,
or the 97-win team that just beat them in the division series? Which dugout do you want to be a part of?
Oh yeah.
If you would have stayed in St. Louis, they're expecting a lot out of you. They're expecting you to hit 285, hit 20 plus home runs, and be a cornerstone, a centerpiece. Like, a lot's going to be on your shoulders. And you're playing Mike Matheny. He hasn't smiled for 6 years. Or
who smiled less frequently in the last 6 years? Mike Matheny, Wade Davis,
Bill Belichick. Can we throw Bill Belichick in there?
Sure, we can throw Bill. Oh, no, because Bill Belichick, his lack of smiles have been retired. He doesn't even smile when he wins the Super Bowl trophy.
No, and he had tear ducts removed.
Did he have them in the first place?
He had tear ducts removed when he was a kid.
No. I think he's an X-Man. He doesn't have tear ducts.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Well, that would explain a lot. All right, so we're getting what the hell happened?
We're getting a little bit into your brother's podcast.
St. Louis butthurt over. Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, anytime a player that your organization is willing to lock up for a long time. Hayward had a nice year in 15.
Well, not only that, not only did the Cardinals make a better offer, but also he made it pretty explicit in his introductory press conference that he saw more of a future with the Cubs than he did with the Cardinals. And
I know, but
seen that at the time. Do you remember all the Cardinals fans who flipped out over that? About Jason Hayward basically saying that the Cubs were the team that's on the rise.
Guys, let's not confuse internet like residents with normal people, okay? Because
no. Not residents, trolls. They're called trolls, Ron.
Trolls.
Yes. Trolls. People that live on it. I mean, people that are emotional. They're going to go on and post stuff no matter what. Did I like to see a good player leave to a rival? Hell no. Nobody likes that. Well, you guys would hate that, right? What if we would have signed Mark Grace before he went to, well, whatever. I mean, that's not the right example, but I mean, seriously. I mean, what if Mark Grace would have left Chicago? You guys loved him, and came over to St. Louis. You guys would have been like, you don't think there would have been some? It was before the internet, but you don't think there would have been some butthurt over that?
Oh, there was butthurt when the Cubs let.
I would have wrote to the
away.
I would have wrote to the Tribune. Oh my God, the Maddox one is the worst one. I blame that all on the Tribune company. That is just
I do too. Yeah, and I blame Anheuser-Busch on Jack Clark walking away after 1987. Boy, that guy got big, right? I mean, he got bigger. Did you see pictures or anything of him when he actually did post-game commentary for the Cardinals for several years? I mean, he looked like somebody that was allergic to bees that got stung by a bee like every night. Like exploding out of his collared shirt. I mean, just it was sickening. But he's not around. He's not around the team anymore. But I blame Anheuser-Busch for favorite Cardinals in past years that ended up walking. Right? They traded Willie McGee. They traded frickin' Willie McGee in 1990 to the A's. I might have tuned out for about 2 years after that.
Yeah, but
there's like a blackout period.
Yeah, but at least you didn't have to look at that face. I mean, come on. We've discussed
beautiful
this before.
face. Hey, I'm going to see that face a lot this year.
Really?
He's back in the fold. He's a bench coach.
Oh, I thought you were speaking a little bit about your personal life.
Oh, Christ. Go on with what you're going.
Oh, Ron turned the camera off. That's how frustrated he is. So, Ron, I think the next thing that you had on, and we kind of touched on this before, but the next thing you had on the agenda was just the Cubs and Yu Darvish's status. And I think that we pretty much can report that it's just status quo. There's been nothing. The only thing that I think that has come out is that it's kind of been confirmed by Darvish himself that there are 6 teams that he's considering.
But what the hell is he waiting for, honestly, guys? Well, what's he waiting?
I kind of feel that he already knows where he's going to go. He's just kind of waiting for the market to I think he's waiting for somebody else to sign, honestly, and to see if he can't get the extra few $1 million or the extra year or whatever he's looking for.
I think you might be right, Elliott. I think he might be waiting to see if the Yankees or the Dodgers are willing to throw up that Hail Mary, right? The Yankees trade Ellsbury or the Dodgers trade Kemp. And that frees up enough money to sign him. Otherwise, yeah, I think you're right. I think he's already made up his mind and he's just waiting on that Hail Mary. But, you know, when the pressure starts to come in 2 or 3 weeks, I think he'll sign with whoever his chosen team is going to be. Because pitchers and catchers report in 4 weeks, and I think that it's different for batters than it is for pitchers. The pitchers need that extra time.
Pitchers need to be there. You're absolutely right.
February 16th. February 16th. Right. I think that's when pitchers and catchers report.
I thought it was 14th.
No, I think it's the 14th. I think it's Valentine's Day for the Cubs.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Valentine's Day for the Cubs. So I think that the pitchers are going to start, their sphincters are going to tighten sooner than the batters. So I think
the clinching is starting to happen.
Right. I think the clinching is going to start to happen. Probably. I think that if we don't see anything 2 weeks from now, here's what I'll say. If we haven't seen the pitchers signed by our
February
show
1st.
when we record our show on January 25th, I would be stunned if we haven't seen some of the top names, both in the starting and the relief market. So what we're talking about is Darvish, Cobb, Arrieta, Holland, and Reed. If we haven't seen those signed by the 25th, I will be floored because that's just getting too close. These guys need to know where they're going to be in mid-February.
Well, speaking of Arrieta, so I got him as a bullet on here, guys. And I'm hearing right now as I'm hearing
Ron,
Cubs and Cardinals.
Please, Ron, please refer to him by his given name.
Flat Bill Pissy Pants.
Thank you.
All right. So Flat Bill Pissy Pants. Now, I've only recently seen Cubs and Cardinals attached to his name, and I'm just not picking up this vibe from St. Louis at all. That they're 100% in on this thing. So where is he going to end up? Like, who's in and who's out? Really? Is it?
I still think the Brewers are on him.
I agree with you, Elliott. Kind of, but I look at everybody who's put an offer in for Darvish. I have to believe is in on Arrieta.
As the backup to you, Darvish.
Probably. Or like if Darvish is the backup to Arrieta, whoever values who more. I mean,
right.
But the report is that the Cubs and the Cardinals, you're absolutely right, Ron, are the two leading teams and that they've offered him 4 years.
I just don't believe it. And I just don't believe it.
I do, because I think that everybody's looking at him.
From the Cardinals' perspective, I just find it hard to believe.
But 4 years on Arrieta is reasonable.
4 years is reasonable.
Is that he was seeking 7 years going into the offseason.
Is it confirmed did St. Louis extend an offer? Or is it just speculation?
Well, Ron, as we said, no insiders, no anonymous sources. We don't know. We're just reporting on what we've read. But what we've read is that
we can't just read the news. We do not just read the news here. We give you an opinion.
That's right. And here's the opinion I'm giving. Sure. Why not? If enough people are reporting that it's the Cubs and the Cards who have offered him 4 years and he's not going anywhere, then that's probably a pretty good indication that it's true. Because if he was looking for 6 years, then nobody has offered him even 5.
No,
that's just. I have to think that somebody.
I don't think anybody's going to.
You don't think anybody will go to that 5th year?
No, I don't think so. I think it's too risky with him.
I think some whack job like Seattle would do it. Guys, I really do. I think if it came down to it, he remains unsigned and it gets to the last minute. I'm just wondering if that one team doesn't go, or say this, right? This is hypothetical. Let's just make something up here. Let's say, like, all right, St. Louis, you had the slightly higher dollar amount, 4 years. I think we're leaning in that direction. Agent picks up the phone real quick, calls Seattle. He's getting ready to accept St. Louis's 4-year offer. Seattle, being the dipshits they are, the collection of a bunch of bad contracts perpetually, which is what they are. I can totally see something like that happening where he signs somewhere for a 5th year.
I don't know.
We don't have to know because we're going to find out.
Yeah. What's more important to him, the extra year or more money?
Or the rain?
I don't think that
we're
rain. Given who his agent is, I don't think that we're going to see Jake Arrieta sign until after Yu Darvish signs.
You're definitely not going to see, or the other way around, right?
No. I think that Yu Darvish will be far more motivated, because I think his agent is probably more reasonable. I think Yu Darvish will be far more motivated to take an offer that is somewhat amenable to his hopes than Jake Arrieta will, because who knows? The Cubs or the Cardinals may have offered something that Arrieta feels is reasonable. But Scott Boras is whispering in his ear saying, no, we can do better.
You can get better. You can get more.
Yep.
What are the little figures that are standing on Jake's shoulders right now? We know who the red one is, not the Cardinals. We know Boris has got the devil horns over here. You've seen Animal House, right?
Yes.
No, you know what? I think
you've got what? Just call it Jake's wife over here.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, what are they saying to him?
I don't think that there's an angel on Jake's shoulder. I think that in his case, given what I've read about so far this offseason, I think that Scott Boras is on both shoulders. And that's why you've only seen what he's seen.
Okay. Fair enough. Is it a different version of Scott Boras or just like mirror images? Like, yes, do it.
Red devil, white devil. Is that what we got?
Wait. Guys, let's pull in a Star Wars reference. You might as well. Is it Palpatine or is it the Emperor? Is it Senator Palpatine or is it Emperor Palpatine? Boris version on each shoulder. Is it like that? Is it like one's going, oh, that's a strong offer, and the other one's do it. Like, come on. How does that work?
No. He's got Emperor Palpatine on one shoulder, and he's got Supreme Leader Snoke on the other one, and they're both saying, "You can do better." I'm not going to attempt the impression. That's your job, Ron. That's why we have you on this podcast.
I can't do a Snoke. I can do the guy who does Snoke.
He's got Snoke on one arm, on one shoulder, and he's got Palpatine on the other one, and both of them are saying,
I know.
Go to the dark side, Jake.
I see where the pen's going. It's getting ready to sign his true contract.
Yeah.
The other one's like, no, Yeah. Okay. Got it. That's pretty much how it works. That's how it works with Scott Boras. And speaking of Scott Boras, just real quick, they were telling a story about him today on MLB Network. I was at lunch. I was listening to this, and the way he phrased free agency these days with ownership groups and GMs versus free agency like a decade ago. He's like, it was strange because every team bakes their cake a different way. He's like, these days, every team bakes their cake the same way, meaning they're all using the same statistics. They're all using, sabermetrics. Like they're all valuing people the same way, whereas 10 years ago they weren't. And the way I read into that is like, basically what you're saying is you could feed somebody a line a decade ago and it was a lot easier to get them to bite on it than it is now. So I think 29 teams are more difficult for Scott Boras to sell in now, except the Nationals. I think they might be the one holdout where he can talk to Mike Rizzo and get him to bite on something. But you guys follow me here? It's like, I think that I think what he's saying is right. To hear him say that's pretty funny.
Well, the report supposedly is that he actually doesn't talk to Mike Rizzo. He talks to the learners. Apparently, when Boras gets his
the owners, okay.
When Boras gets his big contract, he bypasses the front office and goes right to the owners.
That's like me trying to sell something to Walmart and ignoring my buyer and going right to the Walton family.
Hey, if you have the number,
you got the number, dial it up.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's worked for him so far.
So Schwarber's fitness, Cubs fans and Mike Cerami can't get enough of this. He's going to be a monster this year.
He is.
He's going to be huge.
Let's let him be a monster. Let's let him be a monster first and then talk about all this shit later. Do I have to repeat myself? Guys, what do you think? I mean, he does look great. He does look great and he looks fit.
He looks good. He looks like he's gained a step or two. I got to see it. I mean, you can go work on your swing. You can move to Arizona and work on your swing all off season. But I want to see the numbers, man. I want to see hits. I want to see catches. I got to see it on the field. I mean, I want it to be a feel-good story. I want him to do well. I would take a 275 batting average and 40 bombs. That's what I would take.
I would too.
But if he comes out and he hits 210,
not from Schwarber. Let me backtrack that a little bit.
Yeah. If he hits 210 and looks similar to what he did last year, then hey man, you lost weight. That's pretty much what you did.
Well, I go to one example. Two different guys. I'm not trying to run them in parallel here, but we saw a transformed Matt Adams last spring.
Yeah, looked great.
Who's dealt, and he wasn't going to be a part of their future. Wasn't getting many at bats, and I'm not saying that these outcomes are going to be the same at all. Not at all. But I'm just like, all right, that I give him credit, like I did a couple shows ago, I believe, where he had a shitty year. He was sent down to AAA, wasn't comfortable with himself, didn't like how he felt, and did something about it. All the credit in the world for that. But before people start going, he's going to be a monster this year, I want you to let him be a monster first, so you don't set yourself up for a huge disappointment.
Right.
That you could potentially get. You might not, but I'm just saying.
I feel like he's kind of taken that attitude too in some of the interviews and some of the blurbs that I've read online. Is like he's like, you guys are paying attention to, yeah, I lost weight, but he said this is a life transformation. So if he feels that way, I'm hoping that it transforms the way that he played last year.
Well, I think if anything, what Cubs fans are probably just getting their heads. You guys can shoot this down all you want if you want. But don't expect like that result, like opening day through April through May. I think what this is going to benefit him the most is
All-Star break.
As you start, right. As you start getting into August and September, he may hold up better as the season goes along, especially as he plays essentially his first full season.
You're right. He's got to get used to the way that his body plays now compared to how it has played all the way up through last year.
Right.
So, he was playing a certain way, with with his certain muscle tone, because we all know that bulking up or whatever, it changes the way that you either swing or the way that you play the game.
Yeah.
he is, last year was kind of his first full year. He is a year removed from the knee injury. So there's probably going to be an adjustment period at the beginning of the season. You don't normally see that during spring training because it's just too inconsistent between whether or not you're facing a major league pitcher or a minor league pitcher or whatever. You're getting your work in, you're getting reps.
Right. Well, I guess my point is that I think the Cub fans will start to appreciate and benefit from this in August and September if all this conditioning, this transformation, he's able to hold up better by the end of the year. I think that's when you celebrate it.
I would say from a logical point of view, this is a good move for Kyle Schwarber. One, because carrying less weight is going to help his knee stay healthy. And two, I think that he probably has come to terms with the fact that he's not going to catch more than a handful of games each season from here forward, right?
Is he going to catch? Guys, I wasn't aware. Is he still going to?
I think he's their third catcher.
Okay.
He is there. He's the guy.
No. Javi Baez is their third catcher.
No, I think that Kyle Schwarber is their third catcher. But I think that he's the guy that makes it very easy for the Cubs to not feel like they have to have a third catcher that makes it easy for the Cubs to bring in their backup catcher in the course of a game and not worry about that person getting injured or whatever, because they have Schwarber in the game. As long as they haven't already replaced him, there doesn't have to be any concern with bringing Schwarber in because he has experience. But I think that he's come to terms with the fact that he's no longer, obviously he's not their starting catcher, but he's not going to be their backup catcher either. And so he needs to transform his body so that he is a better player in the outfield. I think that there probably was a little bit of him that had grown up and gotten used to the fact that he had been a catcher throughout his life, and he wanted to hold on to that. And it became clear for him last year that wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to put on the tools of ignorance anymore. And so he came to terms with that over this offseason. And now he's going to be an outfielder until he gets traded to the American League for a starting pitcher and becomes a full-time DH, which really is where he needs to be.
Well, and anybody who puts this type of work in to better their profession or craft, I mean, you wish the best for him. You don't like to see people put in this much work or go through a transformation like this and have it not work. So I think as just a human, even though I'm a Cardinal fan, as a human, I'm like, we all hope it works for him. I just hope it doesn't work too well for him. You get where I'm going. But best of luck. But let's hear more about this when he's back up to the Kyle Schwarber we all thought he was going to be. In 2015 at the end of 2016, then I'll be all ears and eyes watching how this transformation improved his career. Until then, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit here and wait. All right. You guys know my take on that one. Last thing. Pete.
Yes. Right.
Oh, damn it. I haven't set my iPad up to not go black screen on me. And I had another question I thought about when I was here. Never mind. I'm not going to get it back. It was the batting average question, but you know what? We're already an hour and 15 minutes into this thing, and I think we can save that for another time.
All right,
let's save it for another time. But as everybody kind of maybe marinate on this for a few days. Here's just simple question: does batting average matter anymore? And I think we can bring this up next week because it's interesting to me that we don't talk about it anymore.
Assuming that you, Darvish, Alex Cobb, and Flat Bill Pissy Pants don't all sign with some teams next week.
I would much rather talk about that, Pete. You know where my mind's at when I'm thinking of things like batting average all of a sudden, league-wide. And all right, guys, where can everybody find us?
Oh, they can find us in a lot of places. Online, they can find us on Twitter at Team Arrivals Pod, on Instagram at Team Arrivals Podcast, and on Facebook, just search for Team Arrivals Podcast. You can find us on the web where they can find a complete archive. Complete? I don't know how complete it is, but they can find an archive of our most recent audio and video shows. They can contact us by email at the show at teamarrivalspodcast.com. And if you'd like to reach out specifically, I almost got it. specifically to Elliott.
You had a mini stroke there trying to say that.
Yeah,
That's okay.
a little one. I had too much scotch tonight. If you'd like to reach out to him specifically, you can contact Elliott on Twitter at
Dead Gecko.
Outstanding. Well done. We're gonna get better and better at this. Also, obviously, like, rate, review, share on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, and Spotify. And I think I forgot it the last couple of weeks, but obviously, please do subscribe to us on the YouTube channel because, as you can see tonight, we like to stream live.
We do.
Hit that bell.
I love it. Hey,
hit that bell. Get the notifications.
You had mentioned the website, and you're right there. I've discovered that there is a limitation on how many audio shows and actual videos we can actually put up on each page. That's why I've put a handy dandy button where you can go straight to the SoundCloud website and then see our entire catalog, or you can hit the button next to the videos and you can go straight to our YouTube channel and see all of them and subscribe, just as Pete was alluding to. So I've thought it through, buddy. I don't do it often, but sometimes I get there.
You get there more often than not, my friend.
Yeah. All right, boys, it's been fun. Another week. I hope we have so much more to talk about next week. That's gets our blood going.
Truly, I feel that's been the theme of winter. The theme of winter has been hopefully next week.
Hopefully next week.
Well,
next week.
Yeah. Last year was worse because most of everything was settled by now, and him and I were just trying to the hell are we going to talk about? let me pull up the top 20 dumbest baseball quotes ever. Cover that. All right, guys. Been fun as always, and we'll talk to everybody next week. All right.
Anything else, everybody?
I should just hit the out button. All right, guys. Talk to you all next week. Bye.
Ron, you can fix that in post.
Nope, leaving it. Bye, everyone. How long should I hold on live for? Who wants to say something stupid at the end? That'll do.